Oh man. Hello, it's Sunday. And midday just means more coffee for me. This is COFOH Live Undead. I am your host, Daniel Crosier, and I am joined by Dan and Leon of 6 Feet Under Horror Fest. Oh, yeah!
You write something on my face.
Dan, Leon, how are you?
Great.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Great, man. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show. It's really exciting to have such a cool show happening in your own backyards. You guys are down in Colorado Springs, is that right?
That's right.
Yep.
Nice. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. Where you guys come from, and how did you get into putting together your own horror film fest?
Yeah. So I'm Leon, and that's Dan. We look very similar. We're not brothers, although we look like we are. Although I think the three of us can probably look
Right.
like triplets at this point.
I know.
So Dan and I we're both physicians. We're forensic pathologists. And so our day job is doing autopsies and investigating murders and suicides and mysterious deaths. So I think we came to that job in our lives, at least in part, because we grew up loving horror movies. And so that's something that, we've been colleagues for a long time as well, but the horror movies kind of really brought us together as friends, and then looked at ways we could kind of turn a passion and our love for getting together with friends and family and watching scary movies into something that we could share maybe with a broader audience.
Nice. Wow. So forensic pathologist, is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
My gosh, I had no idea. Yeah. Now this took a turn, so now I'm really interested in your professions.
And that's kind of part of the shtick of our whole show is, like two coroners, two forensic pathologists showing a bunch of people horror movies. It's almost like too perfect. And so we thought, yeah, we got to do this at some point. And we have for the past 2 years now.
Yeah.
Nice. And you mentioned your love of horror, horror genre, horror movies, kind of geared you for this career path. Can I ask what kind of horror films you grew up on?
Yeah. I mean, me and Dan are of the same age. So, 80s, late 70s, 80s. I loved growing up. My favorite of all time is The Exorcist. It's kind of like saying your favorite band's the Beatles, but
Sure.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the one that really sold me on it. It took me three separate days with friends to watch it, I think in middle school.
Wow.
I like the scary ghost stuff. Dan's a big fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So we're a good duo. I like the spookier kind of artsy stuff. Dan just likes to get to the metal of it and get some good gore out there. So we complement each other, I think really well.
Wow, that's amazing. Leon, before we went live, you were telling me how you guys really started putting together 6 Feet Under Horror Fest. Can you share that story?
Yeah, so Dan and I have been friends a long time. About 12 years ago, I think we started. I had the first one, and I had a cabin up in Teller County, up on the top of a mountain, very remote and on 35 acres in the woods. And so I invited some friends and folks out for a weekend where we did, I think we showed 5 or 6 horror films and had themed meals and cocktails and things throughout the weekend and played trivia. And it was, 8, 10 of us had an amazing time, and Dan was there, and we both had such a good time. Dan was like, I got to do this too. So we started alternating. He would do a summer one, I'd do a fall one. And we did that for about 10 years. And it got to the point where it was so packed that I had to turn people down. And so I did a couple of years where I actually did it as like an auction in my kids' schools fundraiser. So we're doing it for charity, and had such a great time. And as we approached kind of about the 10-year mark, Dan and I talked and said, hey, well, what would this look like if we took it bigger? Like, we've kind of refined the recipe here. We know what we're doing. And this was like late 2019, early 2020. And so by the time we started to get a little bit of momentum about what this would look like, of course, we all of our lives were shut down with the pandemic. And part of my responsibilities as the coroner was I worked with public health during the pandemic to help businesses and schools and folks navigate what was going on. And as things were kind of opening back up, I had a kind of a friend of a friend who was opening a theater here in town, Roadhouse Cinemas, which is kind of an Alamo Draft House dine-in and movie place.
Oh, cool.
And they were opening back up. And so I met with them and kind of went over their COVID protocols and kind of gave them a thumbs up, said, you guys are doing a great job. But I said, like, what are you going to show? Like, there are no movies. There's no wide releases coming out. And they said, yeah, it's a problem. We have a movie theater, but we have no movies to show. And I said, well, hey, here's a deal. Like, I got a buddy. We've been doing this thing for a long time. We were about to reach out to a theater right before COVID. I said, would you be willing to rent us a theater? I've got a charity event that I can do. I can get the folks in the seats, and we'll show horror films. And at least it gets people back out to the movies. And they said, hey, if you can put butts in the seats and get people to eat and drink, we'll do it. And so it was a great way to get kind of the first audiences in a theater without movies to show. And that kind of started the relationship there. And then as things opened up further, we saw that we could sell these things out. And then we kept kind of growing from there, from a 30-person theater that we probably put 15 people in, up to the biggest theater that they have there. So it's been an adventure. I certainly wish we didn't have a pandemic, but people are smart and they're creative and they're resilient and they figure out a way to make things work. And I think Dan and I's biggest thing was, when we opened back up, would people go to the movie theater? We had all gotten used to, a year and a half of sitting at home. Right. And for us, that communal experience I don't speak for Dan, but for me, that's my church. Like, that's where I go to feel moved, right? And to feel human. And I was afraid that was going to go away. And so for he and I to do maybe a tiny little piece to try to get folks back in the movie theater was great.
That's awesome. That's pretty inspirational. Dan, how do you guys go about like curating your festival? Like, what kind of films do you look for?
So we typically try to find some sort of theme. It can be any theme in horror. Actually, probably typed out over 120 different genres of horror that we could actually use for shows. So basically, we're set for the rest of our lives. But basically, we started out with themes like demons. What else, Leon? Monsters, I think, was our very first show featuring the Blob and Splinter.
Yeah.
But lately, it's been kind of based on our special guests that we've had out. So, in October, we had Jeffrey Combs out. So we showed Reanimator and Would You Rather, two of his movies. And then, this upcoming Sunday, January 22nd, we have Linnea Quigley coming out. And so we're going to show two of her movies, Return of the Living Dead and Graduation Day. So
nice.
So lately it's been just based on our special guests, but it could be any sort of horror. We're going to try not to do the same type of theme. Once and done, we're just going to move on and do something else, try to think of something inventive if it's not based on somebody we're bringing in.
Right. Wow. That's pretty awesome. Looks like the Horror Husbands just commented on here. So I'll bring that on. We are so pumped for this. So great to have something like this in Colorado Springs. I interviewed them a couple weeks ago. And they also like you guys doing your own in-home kind of curation and horror parties. They do that now too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great! Awesome. We'll keep it up.
Yeah. So they're big fans of you guys and 6 Feet Under. So
we'd love to see them come out next Sunday, and we'd love to show them a good time.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. And it sounds like, you know, is it the horror fest or Leon? You were talking about another program that you guys were curating with the theater as well. It sounded like one big party.
Yeah, Dan had a great idea. You know, not every for us to believe, but not everybody loves scary movies, right? Some people find the world scary enough right now as it is. But
Sure.
like my wife, who is married to a medical examiner and a guy who hosts a horror fest, she can't stand scary movies, and so we wanted
Yeah.
something that we could invite kind of a broader audience to, something that would make a good date night. And so Dan had a great idea of showing just really, really great, really, really bad movies. And I think any of us who really watch horror have had so many experiences where we've watched something that was so terrible, yet like so amazing of an experience, particularly in the group. And so Dan had a great idea of bringing some bad but great movies, and so we started Schlock Fest, is what we've called it, Schlock Party. And so we had our first one in December and showed Miami Connection, which, if you haven't seen it, is one of the greatest films you'll ever see in your life. And I think almost everyone in that theater was in tears, crying so hard throughout the entire thing. And we played some great trivia. I did a trivia round of 70s and 80s action stars. Name the actor, the character in the movie, but all I would show on the screen was just their chest hair. It was amazing. And one of my buddies did he won, and so I promised him I'd give him a special USB drive of all the images. So I gave bath bombs, I think, as the prize, so he could enjoy some private time in the.
And again, I must reiterate, I had nothing to do with the planning of that trivia round.
It was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. I loved it. So it was an amazing time. It was so fun.
But basically,
theater and just having a great time. It was awesome.
Yeah, Schlock Party. Laughter is the best medicine. And if you don't believe me, come to Schlock Party, which actually our next one will be March 5th at Roadhouse Cinemas, Colorado Springs, featuring Vampire's Kiss with Nicolas Cage.
Nice.
So we're still gonna do a horror movie, but it's not really. It's horror only in name only. It's more of like just balls out comedy, and it's one of the craziest Nicolas Cage performances ever.
Which is saying a lot.
If you've seen things like Face Off, The Rock, things like that, that's nothing in comparison to Vampire's Kiss. So get ready for another hour and a half of just hysterical laughter nonstop. I was telling you guys before we came on here that was probably the best I've ever felt in my life, maybe laughing for an hour and a half straight that hard for so long. And it just kind of just cleared my whole mind and made me feel so much better. So it was definitely some amazing medicine.
It was like Mystery Science Theater live with 40 of your best friends. It was great.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Your cheek muscles hurt so good.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. I love Vampire's Kiss, and how appropriate, because in April, Reinfeld comes out with Nicolas Cage as Dracula.
That's Dracula.
Yeah. Man,
I can see the same schlock level maybe maybe for that movie as well.
Yeah. Oh, I here's hoping, right?
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
I've been recently rediscovering Nicolas Cage, especially his latest string of amazing independent horror movies. Plus, the comedy that he just put out, the unbearable weight of massive talent.
Yes,
I thought that was absolutely brilliant. The Paddington 2 line always gets me.
Yeah,
it's so true.
That's a great movie. I watched that on an airplane, and it made the flight bearable. It was awesome.
Nice, awesome. It sounds like you guys have just an amazing show and such a wonderful community, that comes out and supports this. You've mentioned that curating these, you're picking from themes and everything, and you both have pretty interesting tastes. Obviously, with Leon, more you like the more supernatural, and Dan, you like more Texas Chainsaw type stuff. I'm curious, to see if you can cross over the schlock with the horror, because I always find horrors to be a little bit more comedic, even when they're not intended to be.
Yeah.
And obviously, B movies and stuff like that, that might not be so self-aware, but I always love that scare and then the laughter that comes after that. In a group setting, I think it's the
Yeah.
best.
I mean, yeah, we've had a lot of that with things like the Blob, for example. I think it's very, schlock and horror is very interconnected.
Right.
A lot of the times, although we did show Dark and the Wicked one time, and that no schlock there, but I still think that was probably our best actual horror movie we've ever screened so far in our show, just based on pure, horror that just leaves you feeling ill almost after you watch it.
Right.
But again, yeah, schlock and horror very. I think being scared kind of elicits kind of that reaction of wanting to laugh, to try to make oneself feel better. And so I think also just kind of the way the human brain works is kind of a big reason for why horror and kind of comedy kind of go hand in hand a lot of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I think of going to the theater, those biggest scares, you jump and then immediately you start laughing because you're like, oh man, they got me on that one. They got me. And I think it stimulates, I think, those same centers in the body. Maybe not for everybody, but certainly for many of us. And just the joy of that. I got a 13 and an 11-year-old, almost 12-year-old. And so plenty of times of hiding behind the closet and dad jumps out to scare them. And they scream and they immediately start laughing and they're like, I'm going to get you. So, it's that roller coaster feeling. And to do that as a group, I think makes it even better. It's fun to do that, in your basement and watching your own house, but to do it in a group of people with your friends and is a totally different experience.
Yeah.
That's the part that I think that we relish.
Yeah. And I've run across a few of our fans who, I mean, I have two good friends who they almost didn't come to their first show, and I just told them about it. They said, okay, we'll come, just support you, and who knows, maybe it'll be okay. After the first show, they were hooked.
Nice.
And like the guy's wife isn't even a horror fan, but I think it was that group setting, the way we turned it into an event with the raffle ticket drawings, the trivia, Leon and me just being amazing co-hosts. That's just like the most entertaining thing in the world. But yeah, going back to the group mentality of watching something together, it really creates a dynamic you can't recreate when you're just sitting at home alone or with your spouse just watching it together. It's not that. It's a totally different thing. And we're just happy we can bring this community of horror lovers together in the Colorado Springs area and have a good time every few months now, especially with the schlock party added on. We're doing probably about a half a dozen shows a year now.
Man, that's awesome. What an amazing well, one, to do that, you guys have to have so much, commitment and love for that stuff. I mean, curating such a show or series of shows really like that is pretty intense. And I love going, like here in Denver, we've got stuff like Scream Screen, which is amazing with Teresa Mercado at C Center. And then also like Rainbow Cult, which has been pretty fun. Dealing with more like LGBTQ sensibilities and that. And for me as kind of a straight white male, it's like it's really insightful. And because I'm being opened up to communities that I normally am not engaging with as much as I should. But yeah, it sounds like so much fun. So definitely for everybody that's watching after this broadcast, go over to their website. It's scrolling down below, and pick up your tickets for next weekend. because they're going fast, right? You guys
Yeah.
are
So 6 Feet Under Horror Fest. There's a big old poster with Linnea Quigley as Trash and Return of the Living Dead. Click on that poster and it'll take you right to the ticket sales. We have only 5 VIP tickets left and about 15 general admission film tickets left. So I wouldn't, if you're really interested in coming next Sunday, I wouldn't wait around and hope that some are left in a week. Please do help us sell out this next event.
nice. No, that's awesome. The the horror husbands keep chiming in. They intend on being there next
All right,
week.
horror husbands. Yay.
Yes.
Linnea
Shout out to them.
is the queen of the midnight movies, and then
She is.
my partner with COFOH, Brett. Do you ever see gore on the screen and compare it to real life?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Given our jobs, there's a couple components to it. One, I remember being at one of the Resident Evils films and seeing it, and it was like, I don't know, like 50 zombies were killed or something, and she was just mowing through them. And my first thought was like, oh, it wasn't all the gore. It was like, oh my God, that'd be a horrible day. Like, that's a horrible Monday if we had to deal with like 50 killed zombies that we had to autopsy. And so when we do watch, it's you can certainly separate the two, but there's a certain component though when you see a really well done gore scene, or even in particular an autopsy scene. There are so many terrible autopsy scenes out there. One of the best that exists, honestly, is Reanimator. Theirs is pretty good. And so we definitely, you see it and you're like, that's not even at all how that works. You should at least try, like give it a good effort to do it. But sometimes it's impressive how well people do, and then other times it's not even close.
Yeah, most of the time pretty bad. Leon said, we just saw Reanimator in October with Jeff Combs, who was there, and they had an autopsy scene. It was pretty good, with exception of the fact that they were able to open the head in about 2 seconds, which that's not true. There's a lot of scalp and a lot of bone to get through, and it usually takes several minutes for a highly trained technician to do that. But the brain itself looked pretty good, I thought. Nice. I would recommend The Autopsy of Jane Doe as a really good horror movie that kind of portrays, the morgue and the dead body pretty decently, about as realistically as I've seen it.
Guillermo del Toro has a new series on Netflix,
right?
And there's an episode dedicated to an autopsy, and that entire thing, with tiny exceptions, was almost indistinguishable from a real autopsy.
That was good too.
It's phenomenal. It's a really, really good one.
Yeah, I remember that episode with F. Murray Abraham, and they really lingered on that setting for such a long time, and I was. Yeah, I was just like sitting there, holy crap. Luckily I was kind of swept up in the story, but if I just sat there and fixated on the what was going on the autopsy table, I was like, man, I could really get lost in the special effects. Really well there. But it's pretty impressive to hear too that there was a lot of accuracies. When you're kind of thinking on that too, like, do you ever do trivia on accurate and inaccurate autopsy scenes?
We haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. I teach at UCCS. I'm a professor there as well, and so I teach a class on the investigation of injury and death. And so I wrap a lot of my lectures around, here's how it really works. Here's how you see it on TV, or even some sort of critical analysis. I'll show them videos of CSI after they've learned what we're supposed to do, and then say, what did they do wrong? How'd they screw it up? And even with a minimal amount of training and seeing it, they're like, oh my God, this is all completely wrong. Which makes it fun for them, helps reinforce kind of the right ways to do things.
And with that too, with stuff like that being so so commonplace in horror movies and procedural dramas and stuff like that. Have you guys ever had the opportunity to lend your talents as a consultant on productions?
Yeah, actually, so I do quite a bit of true crime. So
Oh,
I
cool.
was in the John Bonet documentary, and I
Mm.
did like 9 seasons of Homicide Hunters with Lieutenant Joe Kinda. So I do a
Wow.
lot of theirs. But Dan is the only one who's actually now been in a fictional horror film.
No
Um,
kidding.
so he can tell you all about that.
Yeah.
Yes. So these local guys in the Springs finally decided to go through with a zombie movie they've been planning for 10 years or so. And just, Ralph Giordano, the Independent Film Society of Colorado president, IFSOC, he got to know Leon and me over the past few years with our festival, and we've helped him out with being a sponsor for IFSOC.
Nice.
So to show appreciation, he gave us both roles in their movie that they shot a month or two ago, and
Yeah, they're still shooting. They're still in
they're
production.
still technically shooting. I think they'll have a rough print end of March, but Leon unfortunately couldn't make it. But I was cast as the surgeon in a scene where there's a fight between two of the characters in the operating room, and I'm performing open heart surgery on this person, and one of the person's heads is almost stuck into the person's chest cavity, and then I try to stop him, but then he basically bitch slaps me really hard, and I go flying across the room. And that was essentially my role in the film. I'm all gowned up with a mask on and all that, so you can't even tell it's me. But we did about 5 takes of me flying to the ground, and every time I would land on my left wrist, and so I have some debilitating injuries on my left wrist now from my
He's like Tom Cruise. He does his own stunts.
And they're like, and the little, they said, hey, do you want like a mattress to fall down on when you fall on the hard ground? I said, yeah, that'd be great. And so they bring me this like 2 millimeter thick mat that you use in like gym class in the third grade.
Yoga mats.
And so they gave me that to fall down on 5 times, and so
you're definitely gonna hurt yourself. Oh, jeez.
But anything for horror, anything for horror films, I'm there.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool that you guys are getting involved in the local film scenes too, and being able to support them. Hopefully you guys can host some of the local screenings of some of the local fairs that are being produced.
Oh yeah, if that movie that Ralph made, if that comes out and they want a screening, we'll definitely consider a special screening just for that film.
Nice.
It's called The Descendants is the name of the film.
The Descendants?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
with next Sunday, I mean, you mentioned like 2 films. I think there's a total of 4, correct?
So thanks for bringing that up. So kind of what we do, we show 2 full-length films, but actually one of my favorite parts of each event is actually selecting a handful of short films that are submitted through Film Freeway, which is kind of the gold standard for directors submitting their films to festivals. So starting last April, I believe, I started screening short films submitted to us, and started showing usually about 4 films again every event. And we started voting for best short film as well. And so whoever wins that gets a nice little laurel, 6 feet under laurel for their posters.
Cool.
So we've selected 5 really strong films, including one called Turn Around by a local filmmaker, Adam Raines, that we've shown 4 or 5 of his previous films already in prior events. So we're going to show his as well as 4 other shorts from really around the world. We even have one from the Netherlands called Shut, which is If you've seen The Taking of Deborah Logan, if you're creeped out by dementia, which is really it's
horrible.
terrifying because it's a real life thing, and so I think dementia horror is always terrifying, but that's going to be a really strong selection that is going to freak out a lot of people on Sunday. So don't miss it. We want you to get freaked out.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. The at the Roadhouse too. Do you guys have like a custom menu or anything like that?
No, we have a full service menu. Their staff has been phenomenal. They argue and I think debate over who gets to run our events.
Oh,
and
cool.
So they get to meet the filmmakers as well, and they always do such a nice job. If you've ever been in there, I mean, they're running around serving people in the dark up and down stairs. And so they've been incredible to work with. Their head of IT, the person who does runs the projectors and everything, has been phenomenal to work with. So they've certainly been a good partner throughout this. Us really honestly figuring out what the heck we're doing here, but they've been really good to us and fun, make it a fun event and runs very, very, very smoothly. We had one event, we had Brandon Christensen, who's a director, come in. He was supposed to come into town and flights got canceled and storms and all this kind of stuff. So they set up a giant Zoom with him and his entire cast. He had filmed it during COVID, so I think there were only 4 or 5 actors in the film. And so he set up a Zoom with them, and everybody was on the screen at once. So we're doing a great big Zoom call with him and all of his cast. And so it was fun. And then of course the storm comes and the power goes out in the middle of it. And anything that could go wrong in a horror movie went wrong that day, and yet we pulled it off. And it was an amazing time.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's fantastic. I think next week the forecast is supposed to be relatively warm, except for I think there's snow on Friday or something.
Hopefully we'll have a good weather with a good turnout.
Right. I mean that's the chances we take too, like in January.
Yeah,
here in Colorado,
or with a live event. None of it's recorded; it's all there, so we just roll with whatever happens, which makes it fun too.
Yeah. That's that's awesome. And then on the schlock side, you've got Vampire's Kiss for March. What's next for 6 Feet Under Horror Fest after that?
Well, still a little up in the air. We got most of our stuff decided on for this year. So after our schlock party in March, early April, I believe it's the 2nd, Leon. We're having actress Toby Poser and her husband John Adams. I know it's the 2nd president of the United States, but that's his name, John Adams. They're kind of a husband and wife acting pair, I guess, if you want to call it that. And we're going to show 2 of their movies. One's Hellbender. We're still deciding on the second one, but it'll be one of theirs. They're very high quality, more slow burner type movies, more introspective, very high quality though. They always have great ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. Hellbender though, definitely, if you haven't seen that one, log in and find a trailer for it. It's a really cool, creepy, kind of witchcrafty type movie, starring Toby Poser and her daughter. Unfortunately, her daughter couldn't be there for this show because she started college at NYU. But we're having Toby and Toby and John will be here in April, and then something we're really excited for, and the first time we're going to start this in the summer, June, July, something like that. We haven't figured out the date, but we're going to have a whole short film festival, just short films. Most of them are going to be hand selected from the Telluride Horror Show from last October. Leanne and I kind of picked our favorites that we like the most from the Telluride Horror Show. We've reached out and gotten really good response from all these directors who want to take part. We're probably going to have 4 or 5 of the filmmakers actually show up in person and be part of the festivities, which, I was honored just for them to respond and say, hey, yeah, we want to be part of this thing, because we're just a small little event that's been around for a few years. We don't have too much, not too many people have heard of us yet, I would imagine. So it's always very humbling that these directors and producers agree to be part of it. And usually they're very, enthusiastic as well about it. But we're going to have basically 3 1-hour blocks of short films throughout the day. Kind of the same format with trivia and all that. But instead of just having full-length features, we're going to just have, I want to call it the short extravaganza. Ooh, I know Leon loves all my crazy, stupid names I think of for all of our events. So that's June, and then October is still up in the air. That's actually our biggest show of the year usually, just because it's the, our Halloween theme show. But that's still up in the air. We have a few ideas, and it's just a matter of who can make it and what other ideas we might, have in our back pocket.
Cool. That sounds awesome. With the shorts, edition, it sounds like most of it's already curated, but are there any openings for other local filmmakers to submit?
Not really for that one. We've pretty much filled up the 180 minutes that we plan to do. But the good news is every few months, I'll open up our film freeway submissions for anyone to submit. And then through our website, through Facebook, Instagram, directors and producers are always welcome to contact us directly about screening whatever they have for us. I love screening all of these submissions that we get. Some are not great,
right?
Whereas some are amazing. And again, I'm just left speechless that they would submit their stuff to us. And again, it's very humbling, and that's really one of the best and most rewarding things for me. And Leon could probably agree that, just meeting all these people since we've been doing this, the people at Roadhouse, these directors, these actors that we've had come in, people around the state, Ted Wilson from Telluride, you, for example, today. And thank you, by the way, again, for having us. Just making those connections and just meeting all these really great people who share that love of horror has been the most rewarding thing. And we're not going to go away, because this is really our hobby. If we have to go back to 6 people in our basement watching something together, we'll just do that again. But it looks like it's, on the uptick, and, people are loving that we're doing it, and we're glad that we can be able to do it for them.
That's awesome. Us over here at Colorado Festival of Horror, and we commented on this, before we went live, was, we've got such an amazing horror community, so much talent in this state, from film to novelists, arguably, we've got like the #1 haunted house community. And we were talking about escape rooms too. Apparently we've got #1 for the amount of escape rooms in the state too. Comparatively to everybody else in the US. So a lot of people are trying to escape from their rooms. Oh no. But keeps locksmiths in high demand, right? But it's always good to, I find my experiences, it's always good to reach out and be able to, to support each other, and all the cool things, that we've got going on in the community, and really, share all that magic.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
agree. I think that's one of the things we love about the shorts, is that we have the opportunity to bring in some folks who haven't necessarily had a platform like we have to show their films. And shorts, horror is great, I think, because for many reasons, but one of them is because there's a really relatively low threshold to get into it. It's a place where a lot of great directors, some of our best directors and our actors started out. And I think, as particularly in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, we've seen horror that's come from perspectives that we haven't seen before, and from groups that haven't had a seat at the table and had the chance to tell their stories. And I think we love that piece of it too. There's nothing better than seeing someone else's perspective on the world, and film in general does that for you. And I think horror does it in particular because it allows groups or even individuals who haven't, maybe they don't have the budget, they don't have the name recognition to make something that's 3-5 minutes long that can give you a jolt and impact you and see the world from their perspective. I think some of the ones that we saw at Telluride that were really good were from the female perspective, which we haven't seen a lot of in horror, but until the last few years, things like Promising Young Woman and films like that were just freaking awesome. And so I think that's exciting for us too. We could always sit and watch, Night of the Living Dead, but to have the opportunity to show these films and meet these filmmakers, and some of these folks are young, and they've been showing these movies on their home TV for their parents, and now they get to see it on this giant screen at a real movie theater with an audience of 110 people, and then get up in front of this group and talk about it. To be able to be part of that and provide that opportunity for a young filmmaker it's the best feeling ever.
Awesome. To add on what Leon just said, we've showcased a number of local filmmakers already, including a guy named Joey Partridge, who's actually come on and has loved the event so much, everything we do, that he's actually one of the judges now for our shorts that we have to screen. So he loved it so much that I gave him a role. But one of our events, we showed, I believe, 3 of his short films all in one event. And when we brought him up to talk about his films in front of everyone, everyone was clapping and, huge ovation. And later he said, "Dan, dude, you guys made me feel like a rock star. I never thought I'd be able to have this sort of opportunity." And that's just, again, that alone, just things like that, moments like that make it all worthwhile. Because from my perspective, they're doing something for us by giving us short films to show to our audience. But then when you realize that it's kind of a mutual thing, it's even that more rewarding.
Yeah, most definitely. It's horror as a genre, it's one of those it's one of those genres that I find is probably just the most accessible. You can make an award-winning film, and it picks up all the awards, but next year nobody's going to really remember it or talk about it. But if it's something horror based or something, it's got shelf life, even if nobody really picks up on it, on its first release. It's one of those things that you can just keep revisiting, and it rears its head again, a generation or two down the road. After finding its audience. I think that's one of the beautiful things. Like, same thing for novels and comic books and just all its forms. It's that genre that keeps getting revisited.
And in our house, it's like I said, I have 2 kids, and my he's about to turn 12, and he can't see it all, but he can see some of it. And to see it through his eyes and to introduce him to some of these films that impacted me when I was a kid, and to see him have that same sort of visceral experience, and then immediately do what I did at that age, which was like, how did they do that? Like, how they make that eyeball pop out? How they make that blood do that? And so I got him a Fangoria subscription for like his 11th birthday. And so he cannot wait. Every time the issue comes, he gets it, and we read it together, and I read it and he reads it and we talk about it. And he's got to come to some of the fests. He can't come to all, but he can come to some. And you're right. They rediscover it, and it has that same timeless impact on them. And those movies that made those, we all remember when we saw like The Thing for the first time, or some of these specific moments in movies. I remember in like grade school, we discovered Fright Night, and I watched Fright Night. I can't even tell you how many times, to the point where I forced all of my friends over summer break and my cousins to reenact the entire thing from beginning to end. And I got to be Charlie Brewster, and we had memorized every line of that film, and we did it all in the backyard during the summer. And like, Like he said, nobody's going to sit down and watch Shakespeare in Love again. Like, who cares? But you're going to watch some of these movies again and again and again, and they're going to be watching them in 50 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's they truly are timeless, because what they deliver when you watch them, particularly at relatively young ages, are these impressionable ages, is something you can't get anywhere else, that you remember them forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, very much so, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Now I'm interested. What movies are you guys, introducing to your kids?
We went and saw Megan last week, which was
cool.
Awesome. I loved it. It was so
Nice.
funny. It's a perfect sort of introductory to horror. It's hilarious. It's got a couple good jump scares. It's creepy. It's really well done.
Yeah.
And I'm probably not a good judge. Like, I'm a forensic pathologist, and I watched, Texas Chainsaw when I was way too young. And so that's often an item of discussion at my house with Mom. I'm like, hey, he can watch that. And she's like, he cannot watch that. So I'm always pushing the envelope a little bit, but he has a good attitude towards it, and he understands what's real and what's not. And he loves it the same way I do. But he's seen The Exorcist. We don't do any of the body horror. We don't do any of the stuff that's got a strong sexual component to it. I don't want it with the idea that that's what dating looks like in life. And so no saws and stuff like that yet. But he enjoys a good Conjuring. He enjoys a good spooky. We saw Nope. He saw Us. So he's seen a lot of the really good elevated stuff. I pushed the limits a little bit with Barbarian this year. Took him to see that, and had to sneak him in a little bit, but he loved it, and talks about it nonstop.
Nice. That's awesome. Dan, do you have kids?
I don't. That's probably a good thing.
Oh, that's probably so. Then you can watch Texas Chainsaw to your heart's content
anytime he wants.
See, my plan worked out perfectly.
Nice. Well, when it comes to horror, like the original Texas Chainsaw is my favorite, because that is one that I can still go back and watch, and every time it still gives me nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it might not be something that everybody recognizes as something likable, but because it has that visceral experience you keep going back to it. It's incredibly unnerving. And it's so masterfully done, because there's no gore in the original.
Yeah, there really isn't.
But it's the way it's shot and how it's conveyed and presented just gets underneath my skin. And it's like, oh man, something's clicking and clacking. I'm not sure what that is.
I don't know. Maybe a ghost. I don't know. It's getting really creepy around here.
Yeah, I noticed it's starting to get a little dim, and it's only 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah. I'm getting freaked out, like we're on Unfriended Part 2 or something.
Let's definitely not go that route, right?
What's behind me? Yeah.
Nice. But just real quick, the empty crypt showed up, and there's like, sorry I'm late, guys. So he's saying hello.
It's okay, the empty crypt. We love you.
But we're just about ready to wrap it up. Again, for everybody out there that's seeing this, make sure you go to 6feetunderhorrorfest.com to get the remaining tickets. There's only just 2 or 3. So hurry up and get those tickets, and we'll be seeing you next weekend, right? Yeah. Any other words or anything else that you guys want to share?
We're all ready to go for Sunday, so you better be too, guys. And we promise to make it fun and creepy and memorable.
Yep. And if you can't make it, you got something going on, you don't get a ticket, you can't stand to miss, next week's round of football. That's okay, because the beauty of our fest is it's every 3 to 4 months, and get back together and jump on with us. And once you come, rarely do people not come back.
Nice.
And we like to think of ourselves as a family. So come be part of our creepy, dysfunctional family, and visit us on Facebook.
I think that's the definition of a cult, actually, when you have a creepy, dysfunctional family. But come join our cult then.
So, sometimes it's
We-
family too. They're dysfunctional.
They're just,
You
yeah,
don't,
exactly.
but you don't have to leave your biological family behind or anything. You can go home at the end of the night. We're not going to dress you up in cloaks and stuff and
Yeah, you don't have
slaughter
to hand
animals and all that.
your fake information or anything
right.
like that,
No.
or give away your your earthly possessions.
No, just have a good time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Dan, Leon, thanks so much for coming on and sharing so much of what you guys do and how you curate your show and making it such a wonderful communal event. Yeah, I appreciate you being so generous with your time.
No
Absolutely.
problem. Thanks,
Thank you
Dan,
for
so
having
much
us.
for having us on.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, thank you. Stick around for a few minutes while we sign off, but yeah, just wanted to say thanks to everybody that tuned in, and of course, I want to say thanks to our sponsors. Mutiny Information Cafe. If you're going to start a revolution, make sure you're caffeinated, and of course, Hellfire Entertainment. Thanks for sharing us on your social media. Groovy TV and our friends at Alien Donut Films to Angela and Bill over there, and then also my producers Lily Fisher, Amanda Armstrong, and Stefan Santa Cruz. Thanks so much for your help, guys, and to everybody that tuned in. Make sure you go to the website to 6 Feet Under Horror, 6 Feet Under Horrorfest.com. Get your tickets now. It is next Sunday. It is not to be missed. Gosh darn it! Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And for everybody out there, have a great day. Have a great rest of your weekend. Take care of each other during tough times. And yeah, stay spooky. We'll talk to you soon. See
See you guys.
later. Have a good one.